The site is looking sweet. And now with most of the work behind us, let's relax a little and have some fun. In this last part, we'll check out some cool things related to forms and security. Remember when we disabled HTML5 validation earlier? Let's add it back temporarily. Remove the noValidate attribute so that it works again. Now open the user class. Let's do a little experimenting. Let's pretend that the email field isn't required. Remove the not blank constraint from it and set a nullable equals true option in the doctrine metadata. Don't worry about updating your schema, this change is just temporary. Now open up register form type and remove the required option, which determines whether or not the HTML5 required attribute should be rendered. When we surf to the registration page and try to submit, HTML5 validation stops us. And just like before, the email field has the required attribute on it. We saw earlier that we can fix the problem by setting the required option to false for that field. But shouldn't the form be able to see that the email field isn't required in user and set the option to false for us? Actually, it can. The feature is called field guessing, and it works like this. Set the second argument of add for the email field to null. This might seem a little crazy because this argument normally tells Symfony what type of field this is. Will it be able to figure out how to render this field? Refresh the page and inspect email. There are a bunch of awesome things happening. First, notice that the field is still type equals email. That's being guessed based on the fact that there is an email constraint on the property. Remove the email constraint and refresh. Symfony doesn't know anything about the field now, so it just defaults to the text type. But now notice that the required attribute is gone. In addition to guessing the field type, certain options are also guessed, like the required option. Let's play with this. Add back the not blank constraint and refresh. Not surprisingly, the required attribute is back. Next, remove not blank, but also make the field not null. Yep, the required attribute is still there. The form system guesses that the field is required based on the fact that it's required in the database. Even the max length attribute that's being rendered comes from the length of the field in the database. So here's the deal. If you leave the second argument empty when creating a field, Symfony will try to guess the field type and some options, like required, max length, and pattern. Field guessing isn't always perfect, but I tend to try it at first and explicitly set things that aren't guessed correctly. Let's put our two validation constraints back and add the email type option in the form and refresh. If you were watching closely, the max length attribute disappeared. This is a gotcha with guessing. As soon as you pass in the type argument, none of the options like required or max length are guessed anymore. In other words, if you don't let Symfony guess the field type, it won't guess any of the other options either.